שיר למעלות, אסען אל הגרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגלכם, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך. עליית ימינך, יומם השמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה. אדוני שמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד העולם.
We gather together today as the dear family and friends of Michael David Silver. As we mourn his loss, must also celebrate the full, rich life he led. Death has taken our beloved Michael. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For his love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever. For his companionship, which we shared along life's path, and which still continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and his mind, which brought us joy and happiness, and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'nai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people are well acquainted with grief, with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai natan, God you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For it was good and enduring in his life. We offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. A poem entitled To My Father. And all around shed beauty, grace, and power. Within its fold birds safely reared their young. Beneath was gentle, and the cooling shade gave cheer to passers-by. Its towering arms a landmark stood erect and unafraid, as if to say, fear not from life's alarms. It fell one day. Where it had dauntless stood was loneliness and void. But men who passed paid tribute, said, to know this life was good. It left its mark on me. Its work stands fast. And so it lives, such life no bonds can hold, this giant pine, magnificent and bold. He's achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved poppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given the best he had, whose life was inspiration, whose memory a benediction. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. Adonai ro'i lo exar, bina desha yarbitzeni, amei menachot yanachaleni. If you're familiar with the 23rd Psalm, please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. The Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, once observed there are 3 ways we mourn. The first is with tears, the second is with silence, and the third is with song. We mourn someone truly beloved, we experience all 3. Tears at first, then silence as our grief settles more deeply, and finally song as we're able to celebrate the memories we hold deep in our hearts. So today is a time for tears as we say our final goodbyes to Michael. We'll each remember Michael in our own way. Beth, you remember Michael as your beloved husband. Rachel and Aaron, Mark, you all remember Michael as a loving father. Michael was a caring brother and brother-in-law to Phil and Lori and Eric and Cindy Silver and Eric Cohen, and a dear uncle to Ben of blessed memory, Zoe, Nick, and Ian. Michael was a devoted son-in-law to Julie and Armando of blessed memory. Michael had many cousins who were like brothers and sisters to him. Michael was born in Warren, Ohio on May 1st, 1961 to Shirley and Isidore Silver. Michael was the youngest of the 3 boys. As a teenager, Michael was involved in BBYO, and he owned a bike store with his brother Phil. When Phil moved to California, Michael took it over. Michael graduated from Warren G. Harding High School and then studied industrial engineering at the University of Cincinnati, and Michael continued on for his master's degree. One Rosh Hashanah, when Michael was finishing his master's, Beth was invited along with her family to his parents' house for the holiday. She had no idea he was going to be there and was a bit annoyed when she realized that Michael's mother was trying to fix them up. She had to work at being polite. But the minute Michael shook her hand, she felt the connection up her entire arm. It was a sign. And just as Beth was trying to figure out her exit strategy, Michael asked, "Do you want to take a walk?" He walked her down to his old elementary school and pushed her on a swing. They went out the next night again. And Michael went back to Cincinnati and Beth to Columbus, but he came to Columbus for breakfast the next week, and they started dating regularly, traveling back and forth between the cities. They went on a double date with Michael's friend Dean Shaw to a Peter Gabriel concert. Afterward, Dean told Michael, "You're going to marry her." He just knew it by the way Michael and Beth interacted. Just 3.5 months later, Michael proposed. He made her a mixtape. And although Michael couldn't carry a tune, Michael and Beth used to serenade each other with their favorite love songs. Higher Love, If I Had $1 Million, Heaven Must Have Sent You From Above, among others. I think we heard some of them before the service. This was how they expressed their love and joy to each other. Beth's maid of honor, Alla Gorin Reese, coined their nickname Mr. and Mrs. Oatmeal because they were so mushy. Michael and Beth were married on September 5th, 1987 at Beth Israel in Warren. They had such a deep connection in so many ways. There is nothing they wouldn't do for each other. Michael and Beth lived in Columbus after they got married. They formed some long-term friendships over those years. Once you were Michael's friend, you were always his friend. But right after Mark was born and Rachel was just 3.5 years old, they moved to Cleveland to be closer to family. Family, food, and fun. That is what Michael was all about. Michael and Beth bought their home on Bryden Road, and they loved raising their kids there. Their house was always filled with children and laughter. Everyone was welcome, whether two-legged or four-legged, like his beloved Rufus or his third child, his cat Roxy. Michael always took such pride in Rachel and Mark's activities and accomplishments. Michael was a baseball coach and soccer coach for his kids' teams. As in everything he did, Michael was a creative coach. Rachel remembers how her dad made her soccer team wear finger traps at practice so they would learn not to use their hands and focus on their footwork. Many days after school, Michael coached Mark's team, but he wanted to keep Rachel involved, so Michael had her take attendance or help the boys with skills in soccer. Michael spent lots of time at Mark's hockey games, practices, and goalie coaching sessions, and Michael enjoyed golfing with Rachel. In more recent years, Michael loved watching Rachel play in her roller derby league. Last year, they had full contact musical chairs. She won, and he was so proud he was crying. They have a roller derby on Saturday if you want to experience it. Michael was also so supportive of Rachel's art and enjoyed going to openings. He was very involved in his kids' daily lives. Michael also enjoyed visiting his parents in Warren and going to collect buckeyes from the old buckeye tree. I learned that you should always have a buckeye in your pocket for good luck. Food. Michael loved to feed people. He had a love of cooking. He was creative and made it look effortless. Michael loved gardening and using his fresh ingredients. Mark was his helper in the garden and by the grill. Michael would leave Mark by the grill when he had to run inside and tell Mark, "You are the grill master." Michael's family will remember his chicken cacciatore, moussaka, lemon chicken, and his delicious chicken soup. He made vegan and gluten-free. There was always something that everyone could eat. Michael always made sure there was food and beer in the fridge for Aaron. For Thanksgiving dinner, Michael started days in advance. He always provided takeout containers so everyone could take food home. Everyone was always welcome in their home. Michael's mantra was that nobody should be alone for the holidays. Rachel and Mark appreciated that their dad always exposed them to different foods, taking them to the West Side Market all the time when they were young. It gave them a greater world view. Often when Mark would come to visit, he and his father would drive to Warren just to get pizza at the Sunrise Inn. It was old world style, and they only had a landline. Michael knew exactly where on the road you had to start calling so you could get through, and it would come out just hot when you got there. Michael also loved small craft breweries. Michael was an incredible human being. Beth remembers meeting him for lunch back in Columbus. There was a homeless man that Michael connected with and invited him to have lunch with them. After lunch, Michael decided the man needed more help, so he took him to the counter to buy him more food and gave him the cash that was in his pocket. That is just the kind of person Michael was. At a restaurant, whenever the waitstaff came over to introduce themselves, Michael introduced himself back. He made deep connections with people wherever he went. Both in Columbus and Cleveland, Michael worked as a BBYO advisor. He took many teens under his wing, supporting and mentoring them. Beth got texts this week from young adults who appreciated his guidance and his support. Michael gave of himself without hesitation. And Michael was all about fun. When his kids were little, Michael helped create wonderful birthday parties with wacky games. Michael and Beth loved going out to hear live music. In the summer, they would go out every night of the week. They loved to go to Wade Oval Wednesdays. Michael saw a man and liked how he dressed. He was very dapper. So Michael approached him and made new friends, Charlie. Michael looked for Charlie every week. Michael and Beth loved going to festivals, art festivals, Maple Festival, Pickle Festival. Rachel moved back to Cleveland from Virginia because she had called home and her parents were going to 4 different festivals on a weekend, and she felt that she was missing out. Michael and Beth stayed very active and loved doing things together, even after the kids moved out. Michael had an incredible mind, like a steel trap. He thought deeply. He could solve things and strategize. Mark believes his father was always trying to get you to think, to sharpen your mind. Michael did things on his own terms. He was stubborn and regimented. He always had a plan. Michael possessed such random knowledge. He loved hiking, running, exploring. He watched The Price is Right every day. On Sunday mornings, you could find Michael and Beth watching all the news programs in a row. Michael was a larger-than-life character. He was a master of whatever he wanted to accomplish. And Michael had far too many friends to even mention. So today may be a time for tears. Michael was taken from us far too soon. We're saddened by his loss, but we learned much from him, especially how to love and care for one another. Let these tears serve to strengthen and uphold you as a family. There's a story in our tradition about a rabbi who once passed a man planting trees. Sir, he called, "Why are you planting those trees? You'll never live to see them blossom." But the man replied, "My ancestors planted trees, not for themselves, but for us, that we might enjoy their shade and their fruit. I too do the same for all those who will come after me." Michael planted an orchard for each one of us, an orchard filled with devotion and with love, and these will always be here for us. We must be grateful that we're able to share in Michael's life. Tomorrow there'll be fewer tears, more silence. As the Baal Shem Tov noted, it will be a time of pondering, a time of contemplation. Michael will become a greater part of our characters and our very beings as we integrate the memories and the values he taught us into our own selves. But finally, there'll come a time for song. The time will come we can celebrate Michael, recall all that we learned from him and how he touched each of our lives. May he rest in peace. Zecher Sadik Livracha. May the memory of Michael David Silver be a blessing. And let us all say amen. Amen. I'd now like to invite Rachel and Mark to come forward to share some personal thoughts about their father.
You want me to go first? Or? Okay. Hello. So before I start, I would like to provide a slight disclaimer that there will be small audience participation at the end of this speech. So please bear with me and be prepared. I will ask you to speak. So it's often said that to be truly seen, or to be truly loved is to be seen. And that was undoubtedly the case between my dad and me. So much of what we shared didn't need to be spoken aloud. It was just understood. Over the years, we built routines and rituals that became the foundation of our relationship. These rituals weren't just acts of habit, they were a reflection of love between us, and in many ways, they also became lessons in finding joy. One of my dad's great joys was going to the grocery store. He may not have been the best at apologizing explicitly, but his way of reconnecting was simple. "Do you want to go to the grocery store with me?" Grocery trips weren't just errands. They were invitations into his world, a space where joy lived in small things. I especially cherish those moments where my dad would take me to the store after an argument. It was his way of saying all was forgiven and life moved on. I learned to love those moments with him. He taught me practical lessons, how to spot a bargain, how to compare prices, and in the process, we shared a quiet understanding. Another cherished ritual was my role as his taste tester. As a kid, I would always want tuna salad sandwiches for lunch. Weird taste, I know. And every time, my dad would have me taste it first. He'd hand me the spoon and ask me what it needed. He set out spices, usually dill and seasoned salt, and empower me to choose how to season my food. Those simple moments in the kitchen became lessons in creativity. He taught me not to fear experimenting with flavors and to enjoy cooking with a bit of spice, lessons that have stayed with me to this day. Through those small exchanges, I felt seen and involved in something that mattered to him. Going to the zoo became another one of our special rituals. We always made sure to make a penny press to mark each visit, something we did almost anywhere, and it became tradition to go every year for his birthday. When I developed an interest in photography, he gifted me his old film camera. We'd wander the zoo together for hours, practicing my photography and trying to get the best animal shots. He was my greatest supporter, especially when it came to my creative pursuits. I will never forget one particular zoo trip, though. I had come back from Charlottesville to visit, and I slipped on a wooden ramp and cut my knee. It wasn't very serious, but my dad was determined to find me a Band-Aid. We spent the rest of the afternoon wandering the zoo, going from one place to the next, searching for some first aid somewhere. After a misguided trip to the gift shop, we finally found an unstaffed first aid station. We rummaged through drawers and cabinets, opening things we probably shouldn't have. I can't even remember if we found a Band-Aid, but I'll never forget the adventure of that day. That was my dad, determined, a bit mischievous, and always ready to turn a small moment into something special. And of course, we had to end this whole adventure with some ice cream from Honey Hut. These routines were the essence of who my dad was. He expressed love not through grand gestures, but in the quiet, consistent ways that truly mattered. His love was steady and unspoken, woven into the everyday moments we shared. And in those moments, I knew without a doubt that I was seen and that I was loved. On that note, your turn, everybody. The most important routine of all was the way we would tell each other we loved each other. What started as a silly little joke when I was small of me imitating him became something we did almost every day. So please help me join in telling my dad we love him one more time. Mark will need to kick us off, but then I will need you all to repeat after me. So, Mark, can you get us started, please?
I love you.
Okay, everybody, repeat after me. I love you two.
I love you too.
I love you three.
I love you 3.
I love you four.
I love you 4.
I love you five.
I love you 5.
I love you six.
I love you 6.
I love you seven.
I love you 7.
I love you eight.
I love you 8.
I love you nine.
I love you 9.
I love you 10.
I love you 10.
I'm going to love you all over again. All right, thank you.
Good to see everybody. I wish we were under better circumstances, but as my dad would say when someone would say it's good to see you, it's good to be seen. So, where do I even start, right? There's a man with a larger-than-life personality that can't be summed up with little words, but everyone else having spoken, I'll try to be succinct. My father often taught me life's daily lessons and encouraged me through simple but powerful idioms. Some of my favorites of these being, don't do something you'll permanently regret because you're temporarily upset, you get further with sugar than vinegar, and have low expectations and you won't be disappointed. The last seems to be all the more relevant at this time, and one that has taken me some time to understand. I used to think that this was tied to cynicism and pessimism, but as I aged, I learned that this was my dad's way of saying to enjoy every aspect in life, because you don't know when you might just get just a little moment of joy out of an experience. You just got to make the most of it. He was a mastermind. He would always sit there analyzing, thinking, strategizing on what the optimal path in life he wanted to take was through any situation that he was thrown. I witnessed this, pretty much any free moment we had together as we'd sit there in the basement playing backgammon, game after game after game. At some point, I had earned the right to play, and it transitioned from a son and a father to a son and a father with some friendship. We'd sit there and talk and play, and often reach, a 15-game series, winner-take-all by the end of it. As we would talk, we would sit there and, talk about anything, life, sports, whatever was going on. Well, so one day, we're sitting there, and the conversation was a little more serious. He tells me that the 5-year survival rate for his type of cancer was under 50%. A grim, but, this is where we are. I kind of brushed it off with some optimism. I said, hey, you're at the Cleveland Clinic. They got your kidney removed right away. You're under great care. We'll be all right. Well, that reality, quickly came to an end. Came back with a vengeance. And so he gives me another statistic. 8-month survival rate, under 50%. All right, we know it's getting a little more grim. But, we still would find time to play this game. Sit, talk, spend time together, and enjoy each other's time. As he continued getting treatments, each with its own new side effect, the hope would diminish a little bit. We'd lose the opportunity to play as many games, and eventually, we couldn't play anymore. But even so, every time I would come to town, he knew it was no longer my expectation that we would sit there and play. I'd hoped that I would be able to get in one more game every time, but, you know, it was okay. I was happy just to get some time with him. And that was what he wanted to do, though. He felt so bad. He wanted to exceed every expectation in life. He thought I expected it, he wanted to do it, and you could see it caused him pain. But, you know, that's what he did. Whether it was a birthday party or the amount of food that he cooked for a holiday, trust me, he was exceeding expectations. It's important to note, though, that he was never doing that to be vain, right? He was never trying to show off. It was just genuine, pure generosity and care for other human beings. He was willing to make any sacrifice in this world to be there with his friends and family. Whatever you needed, at a moment's notice, you let him know. Some of my most fond memories of him doing this for me was through my sports endeavors, both expensive and time-consuming. Can't remember the number of times we would rush from a soccer game, home to eat, off to hockey practice half an hour away in the city. He made sure to find a new craft brewery, try a new beer, get a little treat as part of the, payment for all of those dues. There was never a question, though. Since I loved it, Michael loved it, and he made sure it was happening. As I sit here today, I look at all of you, it's more clear than ever that these characteristics are of a great man who received the same kind of love that he gave out. The lesson I learned from this is just to be grateful for the existence of others, enjoy your time doing things that make you truly happy, and to cherish your time with those you love. As Michael said, if that's all you expect, you won't be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you both for your beautiful words. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see victory lies not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage to life everlasting. Amen. If you're able, please rise now for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shachayna Bamranim, Hametz Haimenoch Hanechonom, Tachat Kanefei Ashkina, B'mahalot Kedoshim Adgorim, Kazogar Garakia Mazgerim, Et Nishmat, Michael David ben Yitzchak Vesura Pearl, Shagalach Leolamon, Beganedenet Hegaimenuchato, Anabavalvarachamim, Hastiraigo Beseter Knafecha Leolamim. ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדון ויגון נחלתו, וינוגג בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Michael David Silver, known in our tradition as Michael David ben Yitzchak, son of Yitzchak Vesora Pearl, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. Amen. Please be seated for a few moments. This concludes our funeral service here. The family will proceed to Beth Israel Cemetery in Warren, Ohio for burial, and following, the family will receive friends at their home at 25495 Bryden Road in Beechwood from 4 to 8 p.m. this afternoon and 1 to 8 p.m. tomorrow, Wednesday. Thank you. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help?
Turn towards the hills.
Comes Adonai.